And I wanted to, we haven't met in a couple of weeks, and I apologize for that. And we're we're not going to be meeting next Monday for the next 2 Mondays either. There's a conflict in my schedule next Monday, and the Monday after that is President's Day, and as a conflict in my schedule on that day too. Just so happens to be my birthday also 2 weeks from today, but that's not why I'm not going to be having this session. Um,
Today is my
so,
daughter's birthday.
oh, happy birthday. Okay, so I wanted to just throw that scheduling out there, and I apologize that we're not on a more regular schedule. And I appreciate you hanging in there and being available whenever I am. So I wanted to talk today about American Jews and their connection to the state of Israel. I think it is a topic in the news because of the new Netanyahu government that has been in place now for almost 2 months, and the severe reactions that have come to light and have been published within different media, Jewish media outlets in America, and also by American Jews who have made Aliyah to Israel, who are prominent people in the media in Israel as well. And so prominent is in air quotes because they write in English. As to how prominent they are in Israel itself, if you go on the Times of Israel website, which I highly recommend for news from Israel, it's as unbiased news as possible. It doesn't really tend to the right or to the left as other, like the Jerusalem Post or like Haaretz. They tend in one direction or the other. Times of Israel tends not to do that. And that's why I prefer it. I like to keep an open mind. I don't mind positions on the right. I don't mind positions on the left. I like to keep an open mind about it. And Times of Israel, I'm not paid by Times of Israel, but I like it. And I highly recommend it. And some of the people who write for them, like Yossi Klein Halevi and others, are people I enjoy reading, even though their particular perspectives might be right-wing or left-wing. Times of Israel offers all perspectives there. Just last week, there was on Times of Israel a letter that was written by three prominent journalists who write in English: Mati Friedman, Yossi Klein Halevi, and Danny Gordis, talking about how American Jews should be responding to the attempt at judicial reform that is underway by the Netanyahu government. Okay, so that being said, I don't want to spend today talking about politics and our view of the Israeli government. Our own particular view of the Israeli government. I want to talk in general about how American Jews have related over the years with the state of Israel. I just want to start from my own personal perspective. I think I have shared this before, either in this format of Jews in the News or with the congregation over the years. I grew up as an ardent Zionist. My parents, longtime lovers of the state of Israel. My first trip to Israel was in 1968 when I was 6 years old with my parents for a month. 1969, we attempted Aliyah for the first time. My father had a job there, and it didn't work out. We came back after 4 months. But in 1972, we tried it again. So we were there from June 72 to June of 73. So came home because it didn't work out again, health issues in our extended family. So we came back 3 months before the Yom Kippur War. Been to Israel many, many times since, with my parents on my own. Was there for a year of college, my junior year of college at Hebrew University, was there for a year of rabbinical school 3 years later, have been to Israel, led trips to Israel many times. So, my love of the state of Israel is, I wear it proudly on my sleeves, and always talk about Israel. Not always, but it's frequently a topic of talks on Shabbat morning or high holidays. So the congregation knows how much I care about the state of Israel and how deep my love, my connection to the land of Israel is. And I want to spend a moment to on that, the difference between a love of the land of Israel and a love of the state of Israel. Okay, so our prayer book, 3 times a day, mentions several times in the services a connection to the land of Israel. Okay, it's an essential component. If we were to picture a definition of Judaism as a shape, it would be as a triangle with the 3 points being, and I'm writing it out right now. Let's see if you can see that. I have it read. Okay, maybe you can see that there. That's the shape of the triangle. If you want an elevator speech to explain what Judaism is, it is a triangular relationship between God, Torah, and Israel. Okay, it doesn't matter where you put on the triangle those 3 points, but those 3 points are an essential definition of what it means to be Jewish. This is a normative definition of Judaism. Okay, there are Jews around today who would be considered Jewish who would leave out 1 or 2 points of the triangle. Those are not normative definitions of Judaism. Classic normative definition of Judaism is this shape, a triangle: God, Torah, Israel. Israel being both the land of Israel and the people of Israel. Okay, so we have an integral relationship with God, Torah, and the land of Israel. So the connection is part of our Jewish identity. We can't deny it unless we're part of a particular denomination of Judaism, or we're on our own and we deny it. We can. There's no nobody's forcing us into this triangle, but that's the classic definition, and therefore our prayers reflect that classic definition. So that, like in the morning when we're wearing a talit, right before the Shema, we gather together the four tzitzit, the 4 corners of the talit, and we say, "Bring us." As we gather the 4 corners of the talit, we say, "Bring us, God, back to the land of Israel. Bring all Jews back to the land of Israel." Okay, so that's just one example. So it is almost an instinctive kind of relationship to the land of Israel. Okay, as opposed to the idea of the state of Israel. Okay, so Zionism, a movement started by Theodor Herzl over 100 years ago, that wanted to bring the love of Israel and the prayer for going back to Israel someday into practical political action. Okay, and as a result, not all Jews bought into it. There are some Jews who are not Zionist, right? They're classic Reform Jews, classic Reform, not modern day American Reform, but classic Reform when it first started was anti-Israel. Okay, for the Reform movement 200 years ago when it was first established, it was antithetical to what it meant to be reform, which was to be Jewish in the land that in which you live and have 100% loyalty to the land in which you're living. Loyalty to another land would be inappropriate, Reform Jews said. So early Reform Jews were anti-Zionist. That's not the case today. Most Reform Jews are Zionist, and there's one of the parties that we vote for the every 4 years, the World Zionist Congress. You vote for Hadassah, you can vote for Merkaz, the party representing the conservative movement, or Artza, the party representing the Reform movement. Okay, so the Reform movement is a Zionist movement today. So transforming the prayer and the inherent definition of Judaism of having a connection and a love of the land of Israel, transforming that to a love of this government of the state of Israel is a little bit different. Okay, now, so most Jews in America today would not distinguish between land of Israel and state of Israel, and that they see both as the same thing. But I just wanted to make that nuance that there could be a difference, and I'm going to share my screen in a moment with the latest Pew Research Center study of the American Jewish community that was published 2 years ago. Okay, and it has a whole section just about American Jews and their relationship to Israel. So land of Israel, state of Israel, there is a nuance and a difference between the two of them that we should be aware of. But many Jews, until a few years ago, did not distinguish between land of Israel and state of Israel. The other thing about the state of Israel, love of the state of Israel, is our role as American Jews vis-a-vis criticizing the government of the state of Israel. Okay, so I just want to say something about that, and then on to something else about that, and then we'll look at the Pew Center. So, as American Jews, we really have no say in the government of the state of Israel. We could criticize it all we want, but we have no influence over what's happening with the government of the state of Israel. And I say this as a committed conservative movement Jew, where I have been very, very upset about the status of non-Orthodox Jews in Israel today. And this is, just in terms of the egalitarian Kotel and what's happening with women of the wall who want access to the Kotel itself versus the conservative and reform movements who work together in this other section of the Kotel known as the egalitarian Kotel, and trying to get government sponsorship of that to ensure safe access and prayer at the egalitarian Kotel. It's also about just the role of conservative Judaism or non-Orthodox streams of Judaism in Israel today, in terms of synagogues being built that are not Orthodox synagogues. Where does the funding come for that? Why can't the government of Israel support non-Orthodox synagogues too, right? Orthodox synagogues get built by taxpayer dollar in the state of Israel. Non-Orthodox synagogues don't. And it's even just to get land set aside for a community to build a non-Orthodox synagogue, you just have to go through hoops in order to do that. And then to raise money too, because people in Israel are not used to paying money to go to shul. Shul's free. Why should, and when it's a highly taxed system in the state of Israel today, people don't have much discretionary income to set aside for dues paying organizations. So it's really hard to build a building and to maintain a non-Orthodox synagogue in Israel today. So that's my issues with the state of Israel have always been about the conservative movement and the role of the conservative movement. Now it's also about, policies of the government of Israel when it comes to judicial reform and other things like that. But that's a discussion for another time that I really don't want to get into about the politics. So, but my love of the state of Israel is just as, despite major challenges of the conservative movement in Israel, my love of the state of Israel is still strong. And I'm very proud of the fact that my youngest son is in Israel right now, serving as a counselor on the Ramah High School in Israel program, which began last month and goes until Memorial Day. So there was his idea to be in Israel and to do something in Israel productive, and he has his job being a counselor. So that makes me happy to no end that I've been able to pass that love of Israel down to my children. So love of land of Israel, love of state of Israel, which now leads into something I wanted to share. You may have seen in the Wall Street Journal a couple of days ago. It was published on February 2nd. So I'm not a subscriber to the Wall Street Journal, but Bestseller always cuts out articles, but she's away. My mother-in-law cut out this article. Every now and then they have something called Houses of Worship, and often it's a Jewish theme. So this one, written by Alan Ripp, who often writes the article for Houses of Worship, wrote an article, Should Jews Pray for the Israeli Government? Okay, so if you're a subscriber to Wall Street Journal, look up Alan Ripp, ALLAN, RIPP, Should Jews Pray for the Israeli Government? And you'll see the link to the article there. It's a short article, and it's based on something that the Forward, forward.com, printed as well, that the Forward likes to print sensational kinds of articles. And so it made a sensation in that there's a conservative rabbi, a colleague of mine, in a synagogue, I think it's Anshe Chesed on the Upper West Side. His wife is a professor of Bible at the Jewish Theological Seminary. So Jeremy Kalmanovsky, was quoted by Forward by saying how he and other Jews that he knows have a problem now praying for the state of Israel, saying that prayer in the course of the Shabbat morning service, because the policies of this new government, the new Netanyahu government, are antithetical to what Rabbi Kalmanovsky and other Jews are thinking about Israel today. So look at the article to see that. And it also quotes Rabbi Elliot Cosgrove, who I want to give a shout out to, who's the senior rabbi of the Park Avenue Synagogue, who says, like I believe. No, and this applies to the prayer for our country as well. So the prayer for our country, prayer for the state of Israel have been part and parcel of the Shabbat morning service. Well, when it comes to prayer for our country, it's been part of the service for centuries. And praying for the country that you live in, wherever Jews have lived, has been part of the service apparently for 600 years, from the time of Jews in Spain. So it's always been something to do to show our loyalty to the government in which we're living, to show that we are not a separate group looking to overthrow the government in any way, that we want to be considered loyal citizens of the country that we're living. So the prayer for our country has been there in one form or another, and it's been there as part of the British Empire as well. People, Jews in Canada pray for, etc., etc. So and despite our opinion of the government and the policies of the government, and that whether we're on the right or on the left, we've always prayed for the government as an ideal. We want to promote and have our leaders promote justice and equality for all citizens. That's essentially what the prayer for our country has. So no matter what your political perspective is, we as Jews should be praying for that ideal. Same for the prayer for the state of Israel, in which we're supporting the government that we hope will support justice and equality for all citizens in Israel, and that that Israel should be the beginning of the redemption. That's part of the prayers that we say for the land of Israel, that we hope and pray that we will someday go back and be living there. All Jews will be living there. So that to see it as an ideal, that's the way I see the prayer, whether we believe in the current government or not. Okay, so some people said to me, and again, I'm not saying this in a derogatory way in any way. I'm just to say that some people during the Trump administration had a problem with saying the prayer for our government, and I had no problem with it, not because I'm pro-Trump or anti-Trump. It's just whoever is the president of the United States, whoever is the governor of the state of Maryland, I believe in the ideal of what to pray for and to encourage our government to be supporting justice and equity. And the same thing with Israel. I support the state of Israel, hoping that it will support justice and equality, etc. Okay, so that's how I wanted to lead into all of this now. And now I want to share my screen and share with you some of these statistics about American Jews and their relationship with Israel. So let me do this, and here we go. Hopefully you can all see this, and here we go. Yes, so this is the Pew Research Center. As you see here, it was published in May of 2021, and this is U.S. Jews' connections with and attitudes towards Israel. Okay, so this is the 7th section where you see the table of contents, what all the sections are. Okay, 12 sections. This is the 7th section. And I tell you, I knew about this because I Googled American Jews and Israel. Okay, so that's one of the chief ways I do research now. Gone are the days where you go to a library and go in the card catalog and look up different subjects to research and then find your ways among the periodicals and other aisles in the library. Nobody does that anymore. And gone are the days also, you see the books behind me. Whenever the day comes that I retire, what am I going to do with all these books? I had to do that with my parents, all their books. Anyway, I don't research in these books. I research on Google now, and I might refer to a book that I have on my shelf, and then I'll take the book off the shelf. Okay, sorry about that tangent. Anyway, you just have to be careful with research on Google as to what kind of articles are going to come up. But the Pew Research Center is a reliable place, and people of all political spectrums refer to it. So the important statistics from here. 8 in 10 U.S. Jews say caring about Israel is an essential or important part of what being Jewish means to them. So that's a remarkable statistic. Again, it's 2 years ago, but 80% of American Jews say that caring about Israel is an important part of what it means to be Jewish. Okay, that's just remarkable to me. Remarkable in that the American Jewish community is the most assimilated Jewish community in the world. Okay, that it is a community that has strong roots in American society, and we have been able to enter all aspects of American society, unlike other places around the world. Okay, so despite the rise of anti-Semitism today, still, the fact that we're an assimilated Jewish community, we feel, that we feel more like Jewish, we feel more American Jews, right? Where America comes first in how we define ourselves as people, that we are American Jews as opposed to Jewish Americans. Okay, so despite the how assimilated we are that 80% of us still say that it is important to care about Israel. So I think that's remarkable. Okay. But at the same time, the survey shows a wide range of views among U.S. Jews about the Israeli government. Okay, so again, unless we are citizens of Israel, we can say whatever we want about the Israeli government. We have no say at all or influence. And this is not just because we're just regular American Jews. Even the Conference of Presidents of Major Jewish Organizations, there is such a conference, even they don't really have much influence. The prime minister, like if the conference called the prime minister of Israel and say, we want to have a meeting with you, the prime minister will arrange a meeting. Okay, but that's as much of the influence they would have. If the conference says, we think that you should be putting this into your policy of your government, Israel will poo-poo that. So we might think we have influence. Money talks. So Adelson and Bronfman speak very loudly because they sponsor Birthright. The Birthright trips, they've been reduced, but still, that's really where the influence comes, is with money. But just because we are the second largest Jewish community in the world, no, we're the largest Jewish community in the world. Israel is a close second. Even with having 7 million Jews in America, we have no influence on the Israeli government. So any of this idea that this section here, the survey is, to me, meaningless. But still, 80% of us care about Israel. Now, travel to Israel, 45% of Jewish adults have been to Israel. That's pretty remarkable too. For an assimilated Jewish community to think about having discretionary income to travel and to choose to travel to Israel, 45% have been to Israel. That's pretty amazing. Okay. 19% of them have visited once, 26. So a quarter of Jews of Israel have visited more than once. Jews of America, 25% of Jews of America have visited Israel more than once. All right, so that's pretty amazing. Okay, and then it breaks it down by denomination. That doesn't matter, but still, 25% have visited Israel more than once. So that's just within the past 2 years. That's pretty amazing. So attached. So you care about Israel, okay, as part of who you are, as part of your identity. Now, how attached are you to it? So does that care lead to something a little bit more substantial? So 25% of American Jews say they are somewhat emotionally attached, or no, are very attached, or 32% say they are somewhat emotionally attached. So that's, if you add them both together, 57 are at least somewhat emotionally attached to Israel. That's pretty good. That's a majority of American Jews are emotionally attached to the state of Israel. That's amazing. The strongest attachment, it's not a surprise, would come from Orthodox Jews. But here's an element that I wanted to share. There's something here about how God plays a role in the, just let me, I saw it here a minute ago. Something about a majority of American Jews think that the state of Israel was given, that the land of Israel was given by God to us. And I'm sorry, I just want to find, yeah, here it is. Okay. This is it. 1 in 3 Jews in America believe that God gave the land that is now Israel to the Jewish people. Okay, so this is fascinating in terms of our attachment to Israel and why we care about Israel, that 33% of us 1/3 of American Jews, so 1/3 of the 7 million, 2 million Jews in America, 2.5 million Jews in America believe that God gave the land of Israel to the Jewish people, so that our attachment to the land is a religious attachment. Okay, I think this is a significant statistic, and of course, the more traditional a Jew you are, the more you're going to think that. So that if you look here, this little number here, 87% of Orthodox Jews believe that God gave the state of Israel to the land of Israel to the Jewish people. Okay, I see this as significant in that, for other conversations we might have about the potential for Israeli-Palestinian peace and the end to the conflict, the idea that the land of Israel was given by God impacts the process of peace with the Palestinians, because it impacts the idea of giving up some land. All right, I wanted to correct my English there. Give up some of the land to the Palestinians would go against our understanding that the land was given by God. Who are we as people to give up God's land to anybody else? God's land was given to us. And it's only for us to decide what to do with this land, for us to live on it. Yes, Saul. I can't hear you. There you go.
What do you tell your Gentile friends who say that's not a good reason?
That the
land
right,
belonged,
okay.
that God gave us the land.
Okay, so here I'm going to be semi-radical. I'm not so sure God gave the land of Israel to the Jewish people. Okay, so which means this is a bigger, which comes under the bigger umbrella. Who wrote the Torah? Okay, I do not believe that God wrote the Torah and gave it to Moses at Mount Sinai. Okay, so that shouldn't be news to anybody. I've said that before, over the years, many times. So it comes up in Torah study class almost all the time, every Wednesday. I do believe that the stories contained in the Torah are ancient Jewish stories. I absolutely believe that. But as stories, they are created by human beings, just like myths are created by other societies about the origin of their group of people. I believe the Torah is the collection of the origin stories of the Jewish people. So I do believe that people over the centuries believed that the land was given by God to us, that it adds to the sanctity of our relationship with the land. Okay, so I think there is a holy relationship to the land, but I would not go so far to say that God literally gave it to us. Even though we read it all the time, even though I say it in the prayers, I believe as if. So that's how I qualify my belief here. My attachment to the land of Israel and the holiness of the land of Israel is to the degree as if God gave it to us. Okay, it's the same way as I understand observing the 613 commandments. I see them as if God commanded us. So I keep kosher, I pray, I light Shabbat candles, I put on tefillin because I believe as if God commanded me to do this. Okay, so that's how I qualify. So I wouldn't spend this much time in explaining to non-Jewish friends of mine and clergy and all this, but I think it's not easy to explain on one foot about this idea. So I do believe we have a sacred connection and we have an ancient connection to the land, but I also believe that peace is an inherent quality that we pursue, a value that is important to pursue as Jews. Peace, whether it's peace within whether it's emotional peace within us, whether it's peace within our family, peace within our community, peace with our neighbors, Peace is a quality that we pray for all the time, and it's our obligation to pursue it. We don't wait for God to give us peace. We have to pursue it. So I have no problem in giving up pieces of the land of Israel in order to establish a lasting and enduring and secure peace. Anything for that, I think, is worth doing. So
Well,
that's yes.
I think maybe the problem that they've had in getting peace is that it depends who you talk to, how you can give the reason. Like
Right.
if you're talking to fundamentalist Christians, they would understand that God gave us the land.
Right.
But if you're talking to somebody who doesn't believe in that, you have to give a different excuse.
Right.
So, what is, I know I'm not asking you for the answer, but it's very difficult because of what my name is, I got approached at work all the time whenever
Right.
there was a problem. Why don't you Jews just give it up?
Right. So that's the thing too. It's there's another issue here about how knowledgeable people are about BDS, the boycott, divestment, and sanction movement. So just how not too many people are up on that, and we're not. So the Pew study points out how knowledgeable about the ins and outs of these issues are. So how knowledgeable we are about the ins and outs of the government of the state of Israel. There is something here about Netanyahu himself as prime minister. Again, this was from 2 years ago, a different kind of government coalition he had then. Not too many Jews. I think he has a 45% disapproval rating among American Jews. So, so here, only 25% of US Jews have heard a lot about BDS. Okay, so we're not a very knowledgeable Jewish community. So I think that could apply to the ins and outs of the peace process. And I would also say about this is that we're not the ones making peace with the Palestinians. It's the Israeli government that is, and the Israeli government is determined by the coalition partners. So the coalition partners today are right and far right political parties, and their likelihood of making peace with the Palestinians is slim to none because that's part of their political platform. So though Netanyahu might be open to a secure and lasting peace with Palestinians, I think all Jews in Israel are, the likelihood of being able to enter into negotiations with Abbas, just as the representative of the Palestinian people, just as a political statement, these far-right organizations have nothing to do with the Palestinian Authority. They would talk to Palestinians, but they don't want to talk to the Palestinian Authority. So there's a whole multi-nuanced, complicated layers to making peace with the Palestinians, let alone giving up land in the process. So so these statistics here about our connection to the state of Israel and how embedded it is in us, in our identity, is pretty amazing. And this other statistic too: 57% of American Jews say they follow news about Israel at least somewhat closely. It's just amazing to me that this highly assimilated American Jewish community has such large numbers here. More than a majority of American Jews follow news about Israel. It's just amazing to me. So that's any questions or comments? I'm going to stop sharing so I can see everybody. Any questions or comments about our connection to Israel?
Oh, I know personally, and I'm probably like a lot of Jews, is I have relatives there. Plus, I know a lot about history that we may end up going there if we can't live here.
Right.
That's why, and I suspect a lot of Jews feel that way too.
Yeah, so it's, but then again, Saul, you're a more educated Jew, and I'm not picking on you. Everybody who's on the screen here happens to be a little bit more educated and caring about these things than the average Jew. And some of the people on the screen have been very involved in the synagogue. So the more involved people are with synagogue, I think, and the more regular people are at services, also tends to add to their personal connection to the state of Israel and the land of Israel. So yes, so someone like yourself and others on this screen have been to Israel multiple times, and you just came back, Saul, from a family trip just a few weeks ago. So yes, but you are a case in point to what the Pew study is pointing out, that it's not unusual, despite how involved you are in the synagogue. It's not reflective that the trips to Israel aren't necessarily reflective of how involved people are in synagogue life. Okay, because the same Pew study shows that only about 20% of American Jews belong to a synagogue. So despite the fact that Jews are not affiliated with synagogues, they still care about the land of Israel and the state of Israel. So your question, Lori, to what degree do lobbying organizations have influence over what happens in Israel or policies of the US government? So the lobbying organizations, if they raise money for Israel, they'll have influence. Okay, so money talks. Okay, so that's why Adelson and Bronfman, they are influential people in Israeli government because they've given millions and tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars over the years for birthright. So these are people that if they could have the Prime Minister of Israel on speed dial, and the Prime Minister would drop everything to meet with them. And I think the same would be about AIPAC and ZOA and other lobbying groups like that. For when it comes to money, they'll have influence. But when it has policy implications, not so much. Really not so much, because when it comes down to it, these are American non-Israeli citizens. Okay, so the same thing. How much influence did Secretary of State Blinken have in a conversation with Netanyahu last week? I don't know, but I'm just saying Israel always leaves that meeting saying, we cherish our partnership and our friendship with America, our oldest ally of all since the establishment of the state of Israel. Israel always will say the right thing. But when it comes down to it, will they change policy because of what the American government is saying? It depends. It really depends. Okay. And again, I don't want this to go into a political conversation. I think it's about influence of American Jews on Israel. And we think we have influence, but not so much. Bob.
A couple things. Number one, I went to Israel, been there several times.
Right.
But this year I found myself questioning, do I continue to give money at the same rate?
Because
Because
well, it depends. Like, who do you give money to? I don't want to pick on you.
No, that's okay. I do the Israel bonds for each of my grandkids.
Okay.
I do the tree.
Planting trees. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I do that every year.
But those are not. Yeah. So let me just interrupt for a second about that. I can understand like this what I said from the Wall Street Journal about whether to pray for the state of Israel. The new government, does it affect our giving? So let me just say, because I don't get paid by Israeli bonds and I don't get paid by JNF. Those are independent of the government.
I know that.
Right. So we should our support of the state of Israel should be independent of the particular government running the state of Israel. It really should. And though it might be difficult to do so, and the threat of judicial reform to upend things in democracy in Israel, right? The Times of Israel keeps reporting about perhaps Israel's bond rating might be decreased. Financial investment of startup companies and venture capitalist firms in Israel might decrease because of the potential of this judicial reform. I think those things are going to be what really will influence the outcome of this whole judicial reform process more than anything else. So whether we invest in Israeli bonds or not, I think we still should. But go ahead,
I
Bob.
know, but I thought about it because personally, I can't stand Netanyahu and his policies.
Okay, so
But
again,
that's
I don't
me.
want to, right. I understand that completely. And I personally can't stand Netanyahu either. But will that stop me from traveling to Israel? No, it hasn't. I really wanted to travel to Israel, and I had to cancel the trip because I just didn't have enough people to go on a trip next month. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to try again. And I encourage people to travel to Israel. I want to travel to Israel, and I look for opportunities to go, despite the fact that the current government is the government of Israel. I will still go to the egalitarian Kotel. I will still feel spiritual when I'm walking the streets of Jerusalem. That is independent of the government of Israel. So I think investment in Israel also should be independent of the government of Israel. Israel bond supports the infrastructure of Israel, right? So that's independent of the, like when you buy an Israel bond, you're not buying furniture for Netanyahu's house, okay? You're hoping to pave roads or build the light rail in Israel. And when you plant a tree in Israel, you're not planting a tree in Netanyahu's garden. You're planting a tree in forests around Israel and helping the environment in Israel, or reservoirs or whatever.
I've heard them say, well, if the American Jews don't support us, we'll get money from the evangelicals.
Well, they've been getting money from the evangelicals all along, and that's a whole different conversation about why Christian evangelicals are so supportive of Israel. But again, that's a conversation for another time.
You are aware that the U.S. gives, back when I was in the government and a contractor with the government, $1.8 billion military aid, and of all the rules that govern those things, there's rules for everybody else,
right,
and there's rules for Israel,
right.
And rules for Israel are extremely lax.
Yeah, yes, but again, I'm not an expert on this. I tend to agree with you, Bob. Absolutely, but it goes to how whether Democrat or Republican, American presidents and governments have been supportive of Israel all along. Now, it might have taken some time in some administrations over the years, like it took a while for Nixon to release arms during the Yom Kippur War, but all along, every president of America since 1948 has been a supporter of the state of Israel. So yes, but understanding that Israel's the only democracy in the Middle East, and so it's independent of the government of Israel. Israel's a democracy, and therefore it's for strategic purposes, not necessarily because they love Israel. It's for strategic purposes that they do it.
Yeah, but we give one of the reasons why Israel drops the phone or picks up the phone and when we call is because we give them so much money.
Right.
But I was listening to a podcast by the Hartman Institute, and Donnie Hartman actually said that Israel loses money on Israel bonds. And he said the only reason that they continue to sell Israel bonds is to keep that connection to the U.S. people.
Interesting. So I don't know enough about it, I think Danielle Hartman from the Hartman Institute would know. I think he wouldn't say anything unless he backs it up with facts and figures. But yeah, that's interesting that's like a monetary way, you know,
So they don't need our money. They probably don't need our money.
Right. But they have it there because they know that this is like a Jewish thing to do. Somebody's born, you buy an Israel bond. Somebody's bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah, you buy an Israel bond for that. Like some people buy a US bond when somebody's born. So yeah, it's a life cycle event kind of thing. And there are some people who do invest in Israel bonds. You know, part of my pension plan through the Rabbinical Assembly, an option is to invest, to set aside money that you're going into the pension plan every year to go into Israel bonds. So it is a thing to do. It's a thing to express our Zionism monetarily. You know, put your money where your mouth is kind of thing. So yeah, it's interesting then that Hartman is saying that Israel loses money on that. Yeah, that's yeah. So Israel maintains it because it's an important part of the relationship, but it's yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts or comments about yes, Sylvia.
My comment is I have a very large family in Israel, as you may know.
Yeah.
And I would say 90% of this family, there's easily 65 cousins there, are absolutely against Netanyahu. So you hear that, and you see the rallies that are going on.
Yes.
What is the immediate future then for Netanyahu?
So I'm not a politician, and I have no comment about that because I can't comment on it. I have no expertise on it, and I really didn't want this to be a political discussion. So I think, though, what is heartening to me is the idea of free political protest to allow to be taking place. And for the past 5 or 6 Saturday nights, there have been large rallies in Tel Aviv and other places around Israel against the government and specifically against the potential judicial reforms. So as beyond that, beyond saying I like seeing that, I have nothing else to say, Sylvia, because I have no expertise on this. I'd rather, but I could refer you to the Times of Israel and look to that letter that Yossi Klein Halevi and Daniel Gordis wrote together and see there's some elements of practical things to do in that letter. And so I just refer people to opinion pieces, op-eds in Times of Israel about the future of the government or things to do to influence the government. So let's stop here for today. Thank you for joining us today on American Jews in Israel and Jews in the News. And remember, we won't be meeting again for another 3 weeks. Next 2 weeks, I'll be off for other conflicts. So take care, everybody. Have a good week.
Yasher Koach, Donna.
And thanks.
Thank
Good.
you.
Bye.